It's 1 o'clock.
It's 1 o'clock. And all my alarms are going off. Yay, setting it up. We're done. We're redirecting. We are muted. We're here.
Hey everyone, welcome to the next installment of the ASC Accountability Success Circle webinar series. I am Gary Ware, and I'm here with my I think you're this way, partner in play, Apryl, Schlueter.
Oh, no, you're this way.
And this month is something that we are both very passionate about, because as just those professionals that like to get things done while having fun, we think about the future. It's not all fun and play, but we like to have fun and play with whatever we do. And so this month, we are going to be talking about planning, 2020 planning to be specific, and a few housekeeping things. Whether you are on YouTube or on Zoom, if you have any questions.
So we've got two different sets. People who are members of the ASC currently. You guys will be in the Zoom chat and saying hi to you there, so you can leave comments and questions as we go. And then the other place for everybody else who wants to get a little peek into what we do at the ASC. You guys are on YouTube. So if you want to be on the chat, you might be watching this from my website, which just has the video. But if you want to be able to interact in chat, then go ahead and click on the video, and I think it'll pop the window open in YouTube so that you can interact with us.
Yeah. And I will be monitoring that. So leave questions, comments, feedback. We got you.
Joke.
Should I tell a joke? Is that what you want me to do?
Yeah, do one. That's how we can get started.
Right. Let's tell a joke. So if you don't know me personally, I do improvisation, and an improv game that it's really corny, but it's fun at the same time. It's called 185, and it's all about telling dumb, punny jokes.
Oh, yeah. We've done this before.
Yeah. And so I'm going to do 185 overworked professionals. So it goes to something like this. There's a setup, which is 185 blank walk into a bar. The bartender says, "Sorry, we don't serve blank here." And then the blank responds with the punchline. And so since it's 185 overworked professionals, it'll go like this. 185 overworked professionals walk into a bar. Bartender says, "Sorry, we don't serve overworked professionals." And then the overworked professionals say, "Fine, I guess I'll just drag myself home and drown my sorrows out with a bottle of rosé." Anyways, cheesy. All right, Apryl, are you ready to start?
I am. So let me pull my fancy schmancy PowerPoint that I put together yesterday. So I'm going to be sharing my screen in just a second. So we will hide in the corner. Let me see how this looks. Gary, do you see it at your end? Does it like take up? Let's see.
It's beautiful.
Yay! So this PowerPoint's going to be a little bit more informational. So it's not like images and whatever, because we are delivering a ton of information today. So there's just a lot of words. It's not the ideal way for me to present information, but because this is so informational, I want to make sure that you see the visual of the words while we're talking. And Gary and I will kind of talk in and out of the process, and I will share a whole bunch of stuff today. So before we start, I just want to let you know that, and this is my philosophy in everything that I do, everything that I offer is a guide. But this guide is specifically to lead you to a more intentional, productive, and happy life. This is like my jam of all jams. So I want to let you know that I'm going to give you a process today, and this process has actually been evolving over the course of the last 5 years. So every time I teach it a little bit differently because I try new things, and I like not being bored with what I do. So I'm going to try different things, but know that there are no wrong answers here. If there's something in my process that you don't like, then change it. But I'm giving you a process that I tried this year. I changed my own processes. So know that there's no hard and fast rules to accomplish anything. As you do this process, the intent is that you do it in a habitual way. So you do this year after year, because that's the only way that it's going to really help you. But also know that the process will evolve and change with you. So you might have a really epic planning year and want to replicate that in the future, which is fine. And you can do that routine the same way if you'd like, but if you want to switch it up, it will evolve with you as you start creating newer goals that are going to require different things. So know that I'm in year 5 of this. So this has been, my 5th iteration of trying and planning, and I'm starting to really nail in a process that's fun for me. So yes, feel free to take this information and tweak it to fit you. I don't want you to be like, oh, I don't like what Apryl just did there. If you don't like it, then change it. I'm not going to be offended at all. And then just a reminder that if you have any questions during the webinar, we are monitoring, or Gary is monitoring, since I'm going to just be like talking so much. He's going to be monitoring both chats with the ASC group and people who are on YouTube. All right. Oops, I have to figure out how to go to my next screen. Okay, so what we are talking about today, we are going to talk about 3 things: how to prepare for an epic annual planning session. I hope it says that my internet connection is stable, so hopefully that's okay. We'll talk about the actual process and how to incorporate people who are involved in your 2020 plan, because you can do this plan on your own, but it's going to impact people around you. And the things that you need to do after your annual planning is complete. Okay, so there's things that you have to do before, during, and after that I'm going to go through in this process. So first things first, why are we planning? First of all, we all know that at the beginning of every year, people like to do New Year's resolutions. And what ends up happening is that those New Year's resolutions barely stick. Right, Gary? Like, we have this, I forgot what that statistic is about New Year's resolutions. I don't know why I didn't write this down in this presentation. Oh, you're muted.
Within the first 24 or 21 days, people tend to fall off.
Yeah. I think it's like 6% actually complete their New Year's resolutions, and I think 60% of people have already dropped their New Year's resolutions by the end of January. Yep. So it's not an ideal model to just decide on New Year's Day, here are my resolutions. This is why we're starting it in October. So also, they don't tend to prepare for success before starting. They just kind of see whatever their pain point is at the time, like, I'm going to lose 20 pounds, go. They just kind of take that planning into very little account, and they don't really think about the whys for why they're setting those New Year's resolutions. And not to say that they're bad, but there's a little bit more than just making that claim that, hey, I'm going to do this. A lot of people will take on too much too fast. So they'll be like, I want to change like every single little piece of my life, and I'm going to do it all. And then they get overwhelmed with the amount of things that they said they were going to do, and then they just give up. Sometimes they'll set unrealistic goals. This is a big one. They don't allow for a flexible plan. That's something that I talk about a ton in my book. It is, I am a super planner, and I think that a lot of the reasons why I failed in plans earlier on is because I was very inflexible. So that was a big learning for even myself. And then they just don't look at a whole life view when planning. That's something that is super important to me, because all of the different areas of our life impact all the areas of our life that we want to change. So if we kind of disregard those areas, then we can be setting ourselves up for not having the success that we want. So before I start about some of the pre-prep, Gary, you want to unmute yourself. Some of these things that need to happen before you do your planning session. This is like the ingredients as you're cooking. I thought of a comfortable space. Like, you want to be comfortable when you're planning. a way to eliminate regular daily distractions. This is like me flying to New York to go do this. And I mean, it just kind of worked out, but this is going to be something that I end up flying out to. Gary, we're going to do a retreat next year, right? In October. Yes. So if any of you want to do your planning in person with a bunch of games and fun and entertainment and just a grand old time, that's going to be happening next October for 2021. Somewhere to write. So if you're a electronic person, you could be using your computer. If you like to write things down, you could do a paper and pen. I wrote huge ass Post-it notes and markers because that's what I used. That was just a way for me to make it fun. You'll need approximately 3 to 4 hours, which you can do in a condensed amount of time, or you can break it up into chunks. And then you also need an open and creative mind, right? Because if you're not in the right headspace to do it, it's just not going to be as fun. And that's kind of what we focus on. Gary, do you have any other ingredients that you think would be helpful?
Yeah, you covered all the core things. I want to really talk about the whole thing about having the right space.
Yeah.
The environment is everything. So if you think about your life, you want to create something that is magical. And if you're in an environment that is draining you, that is uninspiring, you're going to create a plan for 2020 that is going to be uninspiring and it's going to not work out as well. And there is a lot of research that talks about when you go to a new environment. So dropping some science on you, the moment you step into a new environment, all of your senses heighten. They just awaken, because going back to our ancestors way back before we had buildings and stuff like that, anytime you were in a new place, there was a chance that you might be eaten by a saber-toothed tiger. And so that is still within us. So when you're in a new space, everything about you is going to be heightened. So if you want to create something really magical that you are going to manifest, we highly suggest putting yourself in a space that's going to be conducive to that. So that is something that is huge. And the other thing is the space is important, but also, as Apryl mentioned, having that open mind. You remember when we were kids and we thought anything was possible? Allow yourself to go back there. As you're going to see from this process, everything has a place. And when you have that open mind, that open for imagination, that open to possibilities, you can start to think of some amazing things. Because if you want to get someplace new, you have to do something different. I heard Tony Robbins say that once in a talk, and it's true. If you want to have a little bit of the same thing, do exactly what you're doing. But if you really want to take your life and your professional and personal career to the next level, how can you get your mind into a state where you're open to that? So that's all I have to say about that.
Yes. Awesome. I see Heidi, so I'm going to wave hi to her. She's checking in with us and listening along. So yay. Okay.
What's up, Heidi?
So we've got the ingredients, different things that we can prepare. Again, this is a process that you can tweak to be your own. So if you want to include a vision board and grab a bunch of magazines, that can be a part of your process. That's just not part of my process because I just could not carry that many magazines and stuff like that. And I'm not that artsy, unfortunately. So anything that can allow you to do the next step, or the first step in planning, which is, let me see, I don't even know what my next slide is the Wheel of Life. Okay, so this is a tool that I created, which already exists out there, but this is my own special process. If you are on my website right now, or even in the YouTube comments, there is a link to download the Wheel of Life exercise. That is mine. You can do this from anywhere, or you can probably Google Wheel of Life exercise, but this is one that I created that I use personally. I actually did this with my husband 2 weekends ago. He was like, "Can we do 2020 planning?" Which it only took 4 years for him to want to be a part of this process, which is amazing to me. But we basically printed and downloaded this document. We both went off on our own and filled them out separately. And we came back together and talked through our answers. And I did this with him because he is the person who is the most prominent thing in my life that I need to coordinate with on a day-to-day basis. And it was really, really great to know what he was thinking and versus what I was thinking, because when I do my 2020 planning, I'm doing it for myself, but I also have to incorporate him and my family into the process. So you go through the instructions for this wheel of life are pretty basic. You want to focus on rating these 8 different areas of your life between the scale of 1 to 10. Some of my clients had said, can I do it between 1 and 3? But I want to make sure that when you're rating these, that you're thinking about how satisfied you are in those areas. So, some people might tend to think like, how good am I at my health? How good am I at this? But it's not that, because you can have really, really great a really, really great career, but you could be completely unsatisfied. So it's not really how you're performing, it's how you feel about what's going on in that area. And the whole point of this part is, and I talk about this in my book, is that there's a process of creating change and moving towards a better work-life balance or a better, way of living. And you have to kind of know where you are first before you can jump to where you want to go. So this is a tool that will actually help you assess where you are currently before you start the planning. And I said, you can do this with your significant other. You can grab a bunch of girlfriends or your guy friends who guys want to do that and fill out your wheel of life exercise and focus on that rating your satisfaction, not your levels of success. And it also helps you really identify what's working and what opportunities for improvement exist. So this is an actual 3-page document. So it doesn't only just help you, do your ratings, but it also gives you the preamble. I don't know what word to use. It helps you kind of do the initial step of like, what kinds of things might you be putting into your annual plan? Because what's worked well thus far in 2019 and in the past, and what could stand more growth. So Gary, when you did your wheel of life, did you have any interesting things come up when you were?
So, naturally, personal development was high. Family was high. Money was, in a decent spot. The lower areas, and it wasn't really a surprise. Health and wellness, was a big one. And fun was, I thought I would rate it higher, but when I really thought about the last year, just with all the sort of influx with business and having a 2.5-year-old, it wasn't as high as I would like. And so again, to echo what you mentioned, Apryl, is that it's important to reflect on these things, because when you set that course for your life, you sometimes you get on that autopilot, and until you take that moment to sort of jolt yourself out of it, you may think, oh, everything's fine. And one thing I want to highlight what you said before: what got you to where you are now may not get you to where you are or where you want to go. So yeah, it's important to check in on those things.
Yeah. And then the cool thing is, once you start doing this, in multiple years, you can take a look back and see the difference between what you said last year and what you said this year. So here's my 2019. And most of my numbers were kind of the same, except some of them shifted. And then I did 2020. So I get to keep these, and I get to look back when I do my planning in the future to kind of reflect back on, what did I say before and what's changed? So this becomes data for you to kind of keep and use for the future, because sometimes you might create some things in your plan and then drop them, which we'll talk about later on. But then that might be an opportunity to say, hey, I wanted to do all these things, but other stuff came up, but now I want to redo this. Or you might look back and say, that's really funny that I wanted to do that, and I have no desire to do that now. So it gives you that checkpoint to see where you're headed. Cool. All right. So now that we've got the current state, the second step, and these images that you're going to see on all of these slides are my own my own thing. So don't judge what I'm doing in this process, but I'm being kind of vulnerable and showing some of the things that were happening when I was doing my visioning. So I literally was in a hotel room. I was putting Post-it notes up on all of the walls. I had eight different areas that I would start doing visioning. And the easiest way for me to do this was to just choose one area of the wheel. I think this one that you're seeing is my family goals. And I was fast forwarding all the way to December 31st, 2020. And what I like to tell people is think about this from the perspective of you going to a New Year's Eve party with a bunch of people that you haven't seen, and sit there and have conversations with people and pretty much like offload what you've accomplished in that year 2020 with them. So these are going to be the types of things that you wrote down. Okay, so in this example, I chose family. Okay, so I wrote down words, and this is just so I know what some of these mean a little bit more, but I'll kind of explain. So I wrote down executive functioning because my oldest son was diagnosed with ADHD this year, and I think that my younger son will be diagnosed as well during 2020. So it's really working on those executive functioning skills with them, but also maybe with my husband because he kind of needs it too, because I'm really good at it, but I want them to also help me out a little bit. I wrote grandparents, siblings, and cousins because I really want to focus on placing priority on having our extended family interact with each other. So making sure that that's a priority. Technology is a big thing. We tend to all have a lot of time with our electronics, not just my kids, but us as well. And it's not that bad, but it's enough to kind of question our relationship with technology. We have family meetings, which we started really doing this year on a weekly basis. Vacations, we love having vacations together, but maybe not as many as we did this past year. Communication, making sure that we're constantly communicating, which goes hand in hand with the family meetings. This year, my kids are in the same school, so I wanted to focus on being more involved in the PTA more this year than other years because they'll be in 2 different schools again next year. And then I wrote the word teamwork because that was kind of what was coming up with all of these things. So you want to try to start identifying these narratives that you want to be able to share with somebody that or somebody that you haven't seen over a year and say, this is really cool. Like we do family meetings every week, and like we went on all these awesome vacations, and we had enough space to not stress out about, moving from vacation to vacation. We did these once a month, no technology days. Like those are types of things that I would say to people when I was talking about like, how did things go on with your family? And so I'm writing those things down. You want to brain dump everything. That's this process. So then you're going to do this for all 8 areas of the wheel. Gary, what do you think about this? Because this isn't stuff that you've done yet.
Yeah. So I started, knowing Apryl, and she talks about this a lot. I started, doing that visioning process. And why this is important is it gets your unconscious mind thinking about that. When we do our, various training and workshops, I will often have, people do this game where I have you focus on a specific color and memorize everything in your immediate surrounding that matches that color. And then I will have you close your eyes and just name off all the things that you saw. And then I will throw a twist in there, and I will start to, I'll ask you to name something of a different color. And the interesting thing is that you scan the whole room and people will still have a challenge confidently naming everything of a different color. And the reason is your brain can only absorb 578 bits per second. So that's not that much. And there is this like sort of hyper focus. Whatever you focus on is whatever you see. And that's how the brain works. And if you're focusing on a very specific thing, you will start to see that everywhere. And why I say that, tell that story and talk about that game is that the visioning process is so essential because it starts to get your unconscious mind starting to see those things. And it makes you excited thinking about, wow, I achieved that. And for some people, especially if you're the type that don't typically, set goals. Maybe you do the New Year's resolutions. You might have some negative thoughts about that. It's like, you have all of this sort of beliefs that suggest like, well, the last 10 years I wanted to lose 10 pounds and that hasn't happened. So you might start thinking about like, oh, this is not going to work. Like I said in the beginning, imagine when you were a kid and when everything was possible. So yeah, the visioning process is essential to starting that process.
Totally. So this is that first step once we're actually starting to think and doing the planning. The next piece, and this is kind of like the organization piece. And I literally made this up while I was doing my process. And I was like, ooh, I can call it the SNP process. So this is brand new information that I just created. And this is kind of taking your vision and organizing it. You can actually take the two, the previous step and this step and put it together if you are, want to be mindful of time. But I think when you're trying to organize at the same time as doing the vision, it can limit your view. So I broke them down into two different parts. So I took those same things that I wrote all over my big Post-it notes. And just if any of you guys are curious, these are 12 by 12 size Post-it notes. Like they're huge, big. I put them up on the wall in my hotel room, and I was feeling so good about what I was doing. It was super, super cool. But you want to organize it into 3 different buckets, and I'll explain why in a little bit. So S is just the things that you want to sustain or maintain. So these are things that you might be doing already, but you don't want to lose sight of. And I realized in this process that there were certain things that I didn't, that I left off, that when I talked to other people, I was like, oh yeah, that's important to me, like sleep in the health and wellness section. But I'm not that, it wasn't that big of a pain for me this year, so I wasn't thinking about it, and that's okay. But you want to think about what are the things that you want to sustain or maintain. You might end up adding more things as you think about it, but feel free to, put them in that S column. The next one is the NI, which is new initiatives. So these might be things that are recurring habits that you want to put into place. So, I put vacations in there as, yes, we have vacations all the time, but my new initiative is how do we do vacations without burnout? Because that tends to be, we tend to love vacationing so much, but we kind of overdid it the last couple of years. And so the new thing is we want to have some sort of guideline on when we travel that isn't going to cause, and I think it's mostly me, it's not going to cause overwhelm, because there were times where we were literally unpacking and then repacking, and that just did not feel good to me. And then I almost felt like I wasn't enjoying vacation, and that's what it's supposed to be for. So that's like a new initiative. Just like the technology days, no technology days, those are new initiatives. In this section, I didn't have any big projects because everything is kind of just way of living. And so it's okay to have something that's completely blank. Most of the things for the P section, that's, your projects, these are going to be things that are going to require a little bit more planning than just, I want to do something differently. So you'll see a lot of projects in my fun category, in my business category, in my money category, because there's new things that I know that I want to do, but I can't just say, okay, I'm going to just start doing this. Like growing my YouTube channel might take a little bit more than, just deciding that I'm going to need to know how many people, I'm going to need to know what I need to do. So there's going to be multiple facets of it, and that will help in the additional steps of the planning process later. Okay, so the goal of this step is to kind of understand what additional efforts will be needed to change for 2020 before we go into the next step. And you'll do this again for all 8 areas of the wheel. This doesn't take that long. Once you have everything kind of brain dumped, you're just kind of organizing it. Any questions, Gary?
No, this is, again, awareness is key. This process alone is so powerful because it gets you to realize, wow, what's missing? Now we're starting to put these building blocks together to start to put together a plan. Right now we're just laying, like, if anyone's ever done a jigsaw puzzle, there are steps to it. You can't just have all the pieces in the box and put it together. You have to throw all the pieces out. Then you have to flip them over so you can see everything. That's the visioning process. Now you are starting to arrange them in piles. Like, all right, here are the border pieces. Here are like the green pieces that are maybe some plants. And this is what we're doing with the SNP process, is starting to put things together. All right, we want to sustain these things. wow, thinking about like the family wheel, family portion of the wheel. Wow, really didn't think about these things. Again, once you're going through your year, a lot of times you're on autopilot. That's not a bad thing, especially if you have a good rhythm, but it's great to
It's
start to think
1:30.
this worked. And then the new initiatives. And in the a mutual friend of both Apryl and ours, Charlie Gelke, he has a new book called Start Finishing, and he talks about how everything is a project. And so it's important to know what are the projects that you're going to need to, to have so that you can start to get this. Right now, we're still just putting all the pieces out.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, then we go to step 4. After we've got everything organized, we're going to go to step 4. And I did this just because what I usually end up with at the end of each planning session is 2 themes to guide myself. And so this time I thought, let me make a little theme with every single one of my 8 areas. So this is kind of a fun middle step. So I basically looked at, the words that were popping up, and this is almost kind of intuitive, where I was thinking, okay, what does this, what's showing up here that I want to focus on? So if you take a look on the PowerPoint slide, I came up with 8 different theme words. Focus and scale, that was, I think, my business. Back to basics was my intimate relationships. Teamwork is family, as you see in the photo. Expansion, I don't know what that one was for. I think that was, I don't know. Fierce confidence is in my personal development. Creativity was fun. Quality was social relationships, and balance for health and wellness. So the expansion was probably, so expansion and focus and scale, I think, were my money and business. So I just created these 8 theme words, and I kind of looked at what those were. There is some overlap between all of the different areas, which is great, because then you can go, after you create these little mini themes, you can go back and create a one main theme, or sorry, 1 or 2 main themes, and then have this be what is guiding you for the next year. So after all of this, I looked at my mini themes. I looked at all the things that were coming up in the next year. The things that I focused on when I chose my 2020 themes are based on probably more of the new initiatives and projects, right? Because a lot of, what I have always lived is this idea of balance. And yes, that's something that I want to maintain, but you want to make some sort of bold statement because you are trying to propel yourself into some new things that you're going to accomplish. And so I chose expansion, which was one of the mini themes, because that showed up both in my business and money in those areas. And then creative confidence, there's some pieces of the confidence that I want to portray in my personal development growth, which is always something that I focus on, but how do I do it in a creative way? And how do I showcase that? So I think that these 2 themes for me were a way to be able to live, okay, here's what I'm changing. Here are the bold things that I'm doing in 2020. There's a little bit more of a story behind these 2 themes, but they also touch all the other places. I mean, I can say that even though my theme for health and wellness was balance, how do I confidently be okay with the diets that I choose and the amount of sleep that I'm getting and that I'm choosing? How do I be confident about the decisions that I'm making? And that touches everything. So at the very end of this planning piece, there's still a little bit more, but you want to have these themes that are going to guide you because it's just something great to keep focus on. And I put mine above my desk so I can look at them. So as an example, in 2017, I did spaciousness and connection. 2018, I did simplicity and visibility. 2019, this year, was resilient, courage, and wealth. And so now I have new things. And these themes don't go away. They become something that you adapt and then you can build on in future years. Any comments, Gary?
No, this, especially for people that don't like to have, I don't like to have very specific goals for whatever reason. to each his own. And first, I would like, you guys didn't see this because it switches when people are talking. But when April talks again, hopefully she can hold up her mug. It is ginormous. It freaks me out every time. But the thing with the themes, it helps you with boundaries. It helps you with guidance throughout the year because, for me, I was all about keeping things simple and getting the work done. So mine was simplicity and execution. That was my thing. So everything was around that. So anytime I needed to make a decision, I was like, all right, does this align with these things? And if it didn't, then all right, cool. It helped me make things a lot faster. So themes are important.
Awesome. And before I switch the slide, so I bought this mug from Target. Look it's like the same size as my head. And I chose it because my son wanted to buy something, but I was like, I'm going to buy a mug. Oh, this is a big one. It's not even halfway filled if I do 2 full cups of coffee, but it says I can and I will. And I'm like, that is totally me. So, okay. Next. Here's the stuff where we start getting in the nitty gritty. And this is something that I mentioned in my book. And I actually did it differently this year. So now I'm like, I can't go back and change my book. But you can try either way. So once you have your plan, you want to actually look at your calendar and break down specific milestones that you need to complete in order to have this successful year. So this year, or let me go back and say that in the past, what I would say is you're starting with this 12-month vision. And then I would tell people, go back to 6 months. So June of 2020, what types of things need to be happening at that point in time for you to execute what your vision is in 2020. Then you want to go back to the 3-month view. So what you need to be doing by March. And then the 1 month view. So that's the 12-6-3-1 method. Then 1 month, like what types of things do you need to do? Because you're going to have to kind of write down, this is what I need to accomplish by when. You kind of need to start setting deadlines. What I chose to do this year was actually go in reverse by quarters. Because this is kind of how we do things in the ASC, where we do a review every quarter of the progress toward our plan. And, we work with you guys in this group to make sure that you're executing this plan in the way that you want, doing whatever pivots you need to make depending on what's happening. So you can see in the images, so I started with Q4 and you see me saying like, okay, well, I want to do our first annual ASC retreat. And this is kind of our launch for the year. And annual planning, that's a huge thing that always happens at this time of year. But then there's also holidays and everything. So it's kind of light, but this is the big thing that happens in Q4. Q3, I am usually at home with my kids. And so summer sabbatical is huge. And these are all things that are carrying over from previous years. And that's the kind of high level themes of what's happening. Also trying to get my kids transitioned back into school. But I also wrote down, I think I need to schedule some time to meet with a nutritionist to see what changes I might make there. So that was part of my my wellness plan. It was like, maybe I should just get a little bit more awareness about my eating habits. Q2, I'm turning 40 in Q2 of 2020. So there's going to be some big stuff that I need to do in order to set myself up for that. 40th birthday party for both me and my husband, because our birthdays are 2 days apart. And then there's a big push for the media end of my company that I want to start working on. So there's going to be, the market research is going to start in Q2. I'm going to be trying to grow my YouTube channel at that point and start planning the retreat. And then in Q1, which is January, February, March, I need to put together a survey for media for the people I'm going to interview. And then the survey that's going to happen afterwards that I'm going to send out in a mass way. I need to maybe do a video editing training because that's a fun project that I'm going to be working on. Having my son evaluated for with a neuropsychologist, and also making sure that I've documented all processes in my business. So like there's all these things that are happening. And then after you kind of break down your year into quarters, you have to think about all the things that you have to do to prepare for that. So this is why we start in October, because if you look at the two images, the two Post-it notes on the bottom, like there's a lot of stuff that I need to do between now and the end of January. And I might actually not even get it all done, but some of it is like, okay, I need to further dive into some of these plans of things that I'm doing. A lot of it is like, figuring out what rules do I have to make around certain new initiatives, and what steps do I need to take in order to grow my YouTube channel, or how do we, how do we do certain things in our social calendar to accommodate. So I have this long list of things that I need to do. Some of them will take 5 minutes, some of them might take longer, but at least I have the list of things that I need to do. So you're basically taking a reverse look from the end of 2020 all the way back to today and what types of things you need to do. And then from here, you can just start scheduling and doing things. So that's reverse planning. Let me see. I don't know what my next slide is, but okay. Before I go into the next slide, Gary, do you have any other comments?
Yeah. So a quick story on the reverse planning and how, at the ASC, we look at things at a quarterly basis. When I was at a company, we would have yearly plans and it would have yearly objectives. And it will be one of the things where it will become like September. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, let's review that. And then we start scrambling. And then in Q4 would be like an epic quarter because we got everything done. Because we're like, oh my God, we're running out of time. And I forget who says it, but it's basically, I don't think it's Moore's law, but basically you will consume whatever time limit you give yourself. And in the book, The 12-Week Year, it's all about having goals in quarterly increments, because when you have it in quarterly increments, then you can be very laser focused and you can check in some cases weekly, and to know where you are, and you can make shifts. You can make shifts accordingly, and you'll probably find that you'll end up getting more done because you're hyper focused. And if you end up having a bad quarter, all right, that's just one out of the 4 that we have in the year. You can make it up the next quarter rather than having everything for the year and then you it's overwhelming because you're trying to like, I don't know, I'm going to fit all this in.
Yeah. All right, so that's the 2020 planning process, okay? And I did say that there was going to be more that you needed to do, right? So after you do this planning, after you kind of schedule in, here are the little things that you need to do. I've already actually like crossed off a lot on my prepare for 2020 list. But the beauty of this is that you're kind of starting your new year right now without actually putting things in place, because you're trying to put some wheels in motion, which is why this is so successful, because you already are hitting the ground running by January because you've already started. And, in November and December, it gets a little bit crazy with the holidays and you kind of start to slow down. I can definitely tell you that, people kind of go quiet for a little bit, but that's good because they're connecting with the people that they care about and they're focusing on being present with people, which is way more important than some of the goals that we have. But we then come back from this refreshed and everything is set up for us. So the things that you need to think about, number one, you need to be open to shifts in your plan. I think a lot of times people will say like, I have to do this. And then they get so anxious because they're not meeting their deadlines and they don't realize that during life stuff happens, right? We don't necessarily know what is going to transpire in the coming year until it happens. And so sometimes things that are important to us will have to take a back seat. I will say that like my parents were dealing with some health issues the summer after my book was first published a couple of years ago. And I had to like sadly put that aside and focus on my family first because I knew that my family was more important than how many books I sold in the first few months of my book launch. And it kind of sucked, but it's that's what I had to choose. And so I had to figure out how to make up for that in future years. So just know that sometimes things are going to happen, but if you don't allow yourself to be flexible in this process, then you're going to cause yourself more stress than needed. You want to also prioritize the most essential projects and initiatives. So I might have some things where I want to do, I want to do this no tech day with my family, but we end up arguing over how we're going to do this no tech day, and we don't come to a, a solution. Maybe we table that and we just make decisions to say, okay, we're going to do, just a couple hours a month, or 3 hours, or maybe one half of a Saturday, and we can switch things up as we go. Again, this is being flexible, but also know that, if you are thinking about some of the areas of our lives, right? Career, family, relationships, in what order are those important to you, right? Because you might have something where you really care about, your business stuff, but then something else comes up where somebody's getting married, and that is coinciding with a launch, and you might care about that relationship over what you do in your business, and then make a shift on your business plans or something like that. So just make sure that you know what's important and what needs to get done first. You can kind of tell what's most important by what is causing you the most stress. I like to, think about that. One of the things that I did this year was like, I need to declutter. And that's why you see, if you can see in back behind me, I am like in the thick of finalizing one of my last big projects for 2019, which is this box that I hadn't unpacked since I moved in over 10 years ago. So I'm trying to get this done because this has been causing me a lot of anxiety. So I'm placing a lot of priority on that right now. What you also need to do, and this is something that we structure in the ASC, is reflecting regularly. We check in with the people in the ASC on almost a weekly basis, see how things are going, what sorts of support they need, what's happening, how they're feeling emotionally. And just doing that check-in is a way to make sure that they're moving forward with their own plans. And everybody has different plans. So we are there to kind of support if pivots are needed, but we do it on a regular basis. We do things monthly, we do a little bit of a deeper dive quarterly, and then we also do like the weekly check-ins. You also have to communicate with involved parties to get their support. So yesterday in my family's family meeting, I told them that we needed to start thinking about how to work together as a team rather than mom leading the charge and telling everybody what to do. And so we need to think about these hidden ways that we can help each other without being specifically asked to do things. And they're on board, supposedly. So hopefully that will, we'll continue to have that conversation in our family meetings. And then the last thing is accountability, which I kind of mentioned already. You need to figure out a way to hold yourself accountable to this plan, because you can create the plan all you want, but if you don't put the accountability structures in place, it may not happen, right? And maybe there are certain things in your plan that you can do on your own, but I know that I need somebody to force me to work out, because if I didn't have to work out, I wouldn't. So those are the types of things that you need accountability around. So, Gary, I'll bring you in on this in a second, but just so that you guys know, this is obviously our flagship webinar for the year when it comes to the ASC, and because of this whole process, I use the ASC myself as a way to hold myself accountable. So it's not, I'm benefiting from this program just as much as I'm facilitating it. And it's so fun to have Gary here with me running this program together, because we just have a ton of fun, and we both have this similar structure. We have been accountability partners for 3 years now?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we are constantly talking not just about this program, but how we can support each other as accountability partners. And so if you're curious about the ASC, this is kind of what happens with the people who are watching this that are in the ASC in our group, watching from their special area. So the current members, what they get this free annual review debrief. So I told all of them to watch this video, go through the planning process, but they get to get on a call with Gary and I for free or a discounted rate, depending on their level of enrollment right now. And before the start of the year, we get to poke holes in that plan to say, is based on what we know about you, is this reasonable? Is this realistic? What about this? We're going to help brainstorm in that hour. So they get an hour of our time. They can either do it with one of us or with both of us. So it's it's super, super fun and a way to just kind of have your plan be seen by somebody else so that it can be vetted to make sure that you're setting yourself up for as much success as possible. And as I mentioned in the last slide, we have these embedded structures to reflect upon the process on a regular basis. So we have these forms that I created a couple years ago that are supposed to allow you to do this review so that you're basically starting over every month. Like, what am I going to focus on this month? But then at the quarter, we're also thinking about things a little bit deeper and reflecting back on the plan. And then, Gary and I are available on demand to help everybody in this group prioritize and strategize and make those necessary adjustments to the plan throughout the year. So this is kind of the bread and butter of our program. Like, everybody is going through a different journey. We also have these like themes that we focus on every month that kind of add to whatever it is the whole group is experiencing. But this is a community where you actually get help on your plan and you're not doing it alone. And, life can be lonely sometimes. So that is our MO, is to help you actually craft a plan that is going to help you be more satisfied, more fulfilled with your life, just happier, more cheerful, and having a ton of fun along the way. So that is kind of what the ASC is. Gary, do you have anything to add?
No, I look at it like you are the average of the people that you surround yourself with. So if you are we tend to work with people that are in a few boats. They're either a thriving professional, that they believe in the having that accountability to help them grow in their career, or they're a solopreneur. And especially if you're in the solopreneur route, both of us are in that. It gets lonely, and it is challenging, to keep yourself going if you don't have a strong network of people that are going to ask you those tough questions and be there for you and lift you up and have your back. So, yeah.
Yeah. So with that next slide, if by chance you're watching this and you're like, what is this ASC thing? I kind of want to join. I wanted to offer something that was like a no-brainer. You should join. Just do it. So the way that our accountability program is structured right now is that you join the ASC with a one-time fee, or you can have it broken down into 4 months of payments if you need a payment plan. And that, if you pay all in one full swoop, is $497. If you want to join the program before the end of the month, we'll take that down by $100 to $397. The installment payment plan is a little bit more, just to cover, just because it was an easier number to plan it. So it's like $129 per month for 4 months or 4 payments. So you can use the code 2020 plan or 2020 plan IP in a link that I will share with you in just a second. But this will basically give you on-demand virtual coaching from me or Gary or both of us through the end of January 2020. So we will be able to help you with your plan and really, really dive deep with you over the next few months to help make sure that you get 2020 kickstarted off on the right foot. As part of joining the ASC, you get this 1-hour coaching call, because the program doesn't typically have coaching, private coaching. That's a separate thing if you want to, but you get one that you can use for whatever you want. But what you'll also get is same as what the people in the ASC are getting right now. You get that annual review debrief, where we basically will help you go through your plan, make sure that we help you brainstorm any additional things that you need to make sure that you hit the ground running come January. And you can take that call between the rest of this month, November or December. And one thing that we pride ourselves in the ASC is there's a lot of different support programs that are out there, but this takes online courses, group masterminds, private coaching, and networking, and loops it all into one program. We want this to be a one-stop shop so that you can get what you need. And the thing that we thrive on in this program that no other program provides to the level that we do and for the price that we offer is the personal touch. We really, really care about interacting with people in the group. And we are planning on growing the group more in the coming years. And so this is a great way to really get in early and as things start to evolve and shift, but to really build a really great relationship with the two of us before we start to scale this thing a little bit more. So if this is something that you're interested in, you can join right now by just going to that link that is at the semi-bottom of the page, which is the bit.ly link, ASC-sign up. That takes you straight to just signing up. It'll ask you for your credit card and sign up. But if you're still trying to think about it and you're not sure if this is the right thing for you, Gary and I are always open to having a call with you. And the link that is at the bottom of this slide, the Accountability Success Circle, that gives you all the information about the ASC, what we're about in a little bit more detail. And then you can also apply to just have a consult with the two of us to talk about, if this is a right fit for for you to be a part of our program, because, we don't want you to sign up for something that is not what you need right now. I'm all about like not wasting money, but I want you to feel super invested in the program if you choose to join. So if you're not sure, there's those two levels. If you're ready to sign up now, go ahead and sign up with the bit.ly link. If you're still needing more information, hit us up at the other link below with the Accountability Success Circle. And I don't know, I think that might be my last slide, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, we got
Gary,
Heidi. Heidi just signed up, so welcome.
Yay! That's awesome. So super excited. I think if anybody has any questions, we can hang out here for a little bit more, but I'm going to stop the live stream in a second so that we're answering if there's any questions. Is there any questions in the ASC group right now?
No, none in the ASC group.
Because they know their deal. I mean, and people that have been in this program have been in the program for either 1 or 2 years. Like this is a really, really great community to be a part of. And I just met somebody who is in the ASC who I haven't met in person yet over the weekend. So like I do this stuff where Gary and I were trying to just meet everybody. We have all these other fun things that are in store, and if this has resonated with you, feel free to leave comments on this video. If you want to join us in future installments of the ASC webinar series, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and you'll be able to get notifications when those come up. We'll have, a bunch of people who are guest speakers on our webinars. And if there's any other topics that you're interested in learning about, because we're all about, a more holistic view of life. So we're not going to focus just on one thing. We're going to have a very broad set of topics to cover. So if there's ever anything that you need, let us know. So yay! All right. See you guys later. Feel free to continue to ask questions and talk to you soon. Bye. Now I just need to figure out how to stop the live stream. Gary, tell one more joke while I'm trying to figure this out.
Yeah, well, while Apryl is figuring this out, actually, I'm not going to tell a joke, but I'm just going to get you to think about something. Think about what your big, audacious goal is for 2020. Think about how amazing that will feel to achieve it. Wouldn't that be freaking amazing? Now, I'm going to ask you a very honest question. Do you feel 100% confident that you can do that by yourself? If you do, then you're good. If not, we got your back.
We got your back. We make stuff happen, right? Like we are your personal cheerleaders to getting stuff done, and we are trying to lead by example as well. Gary had his first TEDx talk. I say first, are you going to do another one? He had a TEDx talk this year. I published my audiobook this year, version of my book. Like we have done a lot of things, and we are both like parents of young children. So we know that stuff can get crazy, but we want to help you freaking crush it. And some of the people who are in our group sometimes they don't even realize how much they've done, but they have accomplished so much. And it's through this constant, making sure that you're getting the right support that you need, and just making sure that you're asking for things. And so we're going to push our group to do an awesome stuff and just have fun, because that's what life is supposed to be about, and all that fun stuff. Yeah. Okay, I know how to stop the live stream. So are we ready to say goodbye?
We are. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye. You can and you will. Okay.